Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
And do all the things. It was the first time my mind was sparked to entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I learned, because sometimes I did have to have a job during these times. And so I ended up working for a cell phone company.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at a kiosk in the Florida Mall. It was a really rough job. And so, you know, that guy in the mall who you're trying to avoid eye contact with as you're walking by?
That was you?
That guy. Hey, Mike, how's your cell phone service? You looking for T-Mobile? You know, and if there's one place people do not purchase phones, it's on vacation.
Yeah, no kidding.
Mall.
No kidding.
A few of them bought them for me, fortunately. But the great thing about this company was they had amazing training.
Yeah.
And so I really learned how to sell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I learned the product really well. And I learned, more importantly, long-term, the value of being trained really, really well. Later, I had moved to the Bay Area. And between skateboarding full-time and taking trips and such, I had to take another job. But I knew this tour was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 6 or 7 weeks between that date and when I was going on tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how much a company invests in somebody to hire somebody. So I didn't want to get a job and be like, peace out, good luck, I'm going skateboarding again.
Exactly,
you know?
yeah.
I was like, what's a job where they don't care when you leave? So I'm looking through the classifieds, once again, dating myself, and I find Kirby vacuums.
Ooh, door to door.
Door to door.
Yeah, baby.
So what I learned through that, in addition to the incredible show that they put on doing door-to-door sales for Kirby vacuums, is the importance of the ability to work hard, or the importance to do something you don't enjoy doing when you have to.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of titles and various experience throughout my career. But one thing that's interesting when I talk to really successful people is one of the things that they're most impressed with is that I did door-to-door sales.
Yeah. And
so that's something that I would really lend to young people, is develop a work ethic.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, you want to follow your passion, but like sometimes you just got to work hard and take what you can get and just get by. And sometimes that ain't pretty and it's not fun and it's not enjoyable. But if you have the ability to do it, at least you'll never go hungry.
Yeah. And you'll learn something, right?
100%. Absolutely. And then I'll give you 2 more things with this. Well, let me give you 3.
Okay.
And one's going to be when I got into the workforce. But when I was on this skateboarding tour, Mike, this was the most surreal experience of all time. You're living outside of the rules of society.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what day of the week it was, nor did we care. We didn't know what was going on beyond our little bubble. You know, we would skate till like 4 a.m. We'd wake up at noon. We'd get into a van. We'd drive anywhere from 6 hours to, once we did a 32-hour drive.
Wow.
From one event to the other. Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing was, when I discovered that, and I did it for 6 months straight, which is quite a bit of time, but I thought I was going to be doing that, Mike, for 10 years. And so one thing I did not do, which I greatly learned this lesson, I feel fortunate to have learned it, is to stop and recognize what you have when you have it and fully enjoy it, to really stop and smell the roses.
Yeah.
Because while I have some great memories, I didn't soak it up while I had it.
Yeah.
At the end of that tour, I broke my ankle really badly, and they just kind of cast me to the side. I had to have surgery and everything. And, it was kind of a sad, bitter end to an incredible experience. But I was so glad that I learned that lesson, because since then I've had some incredible experiences.
Yeah.
working with amazing people and being in really cool, unique situations and such. And I have still that mindset while I'm in those things to say, John, you have this today. You hope it will last and you hope it'll build bigger and better. But man, enjoy this while you have it
Yeah.
because maybe it's just this. And I've done that. So I've been able to appreciate that.
What a great perspective.
Yeah, it's really helped me, benefit me quite a bit. And I try to pass that on to my son as well. But another thing I realized is perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember, this all sounded glamorous, but man, it was not quite as glamorous as it sounded. We're sharing beds in hotel rooms. We're, in the van. I won't tell you about the whole experience, but the thing I remember we did a demo at a huge music festival.
Mm-hmm.
Our first one, it was in Michigan, I remember. So we do this demo, there's hundreds of people around, they watch you, they cheer, there's a DJ, they're announcing you, feels great. And skated well, and I was like, man, off to a good start on this tour. And so after this demo, there's all these like vendors and music performers and stuff. I was like, maybe I'll just walk around and experience the festival, catch some music. Well, my team manager comes running after me and says, John, what are you doing, man? I need you to come sign autographs. I was like, why?
Yeah.
I am nobody. Nobody gets my autograph. It's not worth a thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, man, like, this is what we do. You skate, you sign autographs. We would do 2-hour-long autograph sessions.
Wow.
Yeah, and we had posters with our pictures. And so after we'd have a table and people would come through. And what I learned in that moment, and I've learned this when I did my first keynote as well years ago, was perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
So you are an expert, you are a star, you are the celebrity. Why? Sometimes just because you're on the stage.
Yeah.
And so
because you're doing the thing, right? You're doing the thing. And quite honestly, the people that are coming and they're having you sign autographs, you're doing what they want to be doing. And some of them never had the guts to do it, right? It's kind of like you were talking about before when you said, oh, I'm going to move to Mammoth and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you're like, you're 100% not doing that, right? It's people like you that people look up to because you're going anyway, right? Regardless, you're going anyway. That's the kind of thing that is so, unfortunately, it's rare. It's rare. And so people admire you because you're where they want to be or where they could have been, kind of thing, right? And so you're doing the deed, you're living the life. That's part of the reason that they respect you and look up to you and they want your autograph,
That's right. And while it is very important to, shore up your weaknesses and make sure you are, legit and all of these things more than just solely the perception.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, for a lot of people, it's tough to embrace being that leader, being that celebrity, for lack of a better term, right? Yep. Because, Mike, nobody knew that I'm sharing a bed with this, having to queen bed and, and be in this hotel, and then all they see is a snippet of it.
Right.
Their mind feels in the rest that this is glamorous and successful and you're making a lot of money on all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I've learned, embrace that.
Yeah.
Become the person, become that perception that people have, and recognize your energy and your power in that moment to use those as launch pads to really accomplish what you want to do. Because so many people say, oh, no, I'm not that person. Let me correct you.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like this.
Mm-hmm. And
years later, I'm very willing to share all those details because I think it's important for people to know the truth.
Yeah.
And humility is important and honesty is important, but lean into that perception and become that person and recognize the power and the leverage you have to utilize that to really achieve what you desire.
Well, and I think for me, it's impacting other people.
Yeah.
Right. Like we did a thing yesterday where we did this type of interview. We did a podcast interview in front of 12 people. And those 12 people that were in that room, it's the first time we had done it. And, like I told you before we started, we're less than a year and a half old. But we have people seeking us out now. and they're like, hey, I want to start a podcast and I want to be a fly on the wall when you do an interview. Great. Well, that one person introduced us to an escrow company that then brought us into their facility. They invited 12 people to be there. So one person turned into 12, right? And now they're talking about doing it in front of a group of 100 people. I mean, this thing has just taken off, right? And all I was doing was exactly what I'm doing with you, exactly what I'm doing with you, except I was answering their questions, and and they're all sitting there going, how in the world did you do this? What, right? And it's not one of those things where I'm all that, but you're right. There's an imposter syndrome thing that goes on with people, and they sabotage their own deal, right? I was
100%.
floored yesterday at what we were able to achieve. And all we were doing was exactly what we had done 270 times before, because that was episode 271, right? 270 times before that, we'd done exactly what you and I are doing. We just hadn't done it in front of a bunch of people.
Right.
And now this thing's catching fire. You with me? And so you're absolutely right. It's and I'm one of the humble guys, right? I'm one of the guys that's like, I don't know why you guys are so amazed by this, because this is just what I do. I dig people, right? And I love getting their stories. I love hearing about, where they came from and where they grew up, and, mom was a teacher. You know what I mean? Like all that I love that stuff. I love that stuff. And the thing I love the most is finding out where you came from and then how you got to where you are, and the things that you learned along the way. Just like this is absolutely invaluable, right? What you learned as the process unfolded. I mean, that's really a big deal.
Well, let me tell you another. So when I fast forward when joining GameStop, and related to your point, is I learned a very important lesson. A guy who was became a great mentor to me during that time. He pulled me aside one time. He said, "John, no one knows your common sense." I'm the type of person where I grew up always thinking that everybody knew every single thing I knew, plus a little more, at least. Right. And so I joined this big, huge company, the world's largest gaming retailer, and they hire me to lead partnerships. And my first day, they said, "We want you to figure out eSports for us as well." And I'm intimidated. And I'm too intimidated to speak up in a meeting. And I would think these things in these meetings of what I might say, but I was too shy to say it because I thought, John, everybody already knows this, and more. Why would I add to it, right?
Right. You're prejudging it.
That's right. And so in these meetings, I'm thinking these things, and later I would find out I should have said something. John, you were correct. That wasn't. And this guy, his name's Nobi. He said, "John, no one knows your common sense." Like, even imagine, Mike, you said you skateboarded for a little bit when you were in high school and you were a teenager and stuff. Well, even if we're both skateboarders through our youth, right? You had a different experience skateboarding in a different place at a different time. Right? So you might know some things about skateboarding that I don't know. And I might know some things that you don't. And, the great opportunity for me to really take this and run with it and really become the leader and have the confidence that I do today was I got recruited, by a company called PRG, Production Resource Group. They are the world's largest live event production company. So 66 offices around the globe. They own $2.5 billion of production equipment. They do every global music tour you've ever seen, the Super Bowl halftime show, all the things, right? They hired me to lead eSports for them. Well, I had learned a lot, and I had began to gain some of this confidence when I was GameStop. But it's really hard to go home on a Friday, being the quiet guy who's timid to speak up in the meeting, and come in on Monday like some take charge type of leader, right?
Yeah.
Well, the opportunity to flip that switch was when I got hired by PRG. Because not only did nobody know me, but I was a leader in an industry that they saw a lot of value in that they knew nothing about. And so I was almost playing it, Mike, like I was an actor. I came in as their director of business development for global esports. And I remember on my first day, I flew to LA for onboarding and they had me meeting the team. And thankfully my boss Jens really encouraged me to like lean in and, be this leader. Well, I go to marketing and I'm like, hey guys, I think on our homepage, we're really trying to get in esports. We should have a drop-down menu. It should have XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And their answer is it okay if that's done by the end of the week?
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm
Mhm.
saying things and people believe me and are responding in the way that I would hope, you
Right.
know? And so now a lot of years of like really learning to be legitimate and like not just faking it, but being able, but if you know everything, if you have that knowledge, but without the confidence and the willingness to step forward and express your opinion,
Mhm.
I just love that perspective of no one knows your common sense because
Mhm.
even if they know a lot about the subject matter you're involved with, you have a different perspective because no one has taken your unique path.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's up to you to deliver that, right? It's up to you to figure out a way to connect with them. Like that meeting I was telling you about that I was on before this, we're literally having a conversation about lack of connection and how important it is that you figure out a way to connect. I mean, it's amazing, man. It's absolutely, and so that's really an art and a science, right? Learning how to figure out how to get together with those people and then share with them what your expertise is. And you're right, you've got to have enough confidence and enough, lack of a better term, chutzpah, right? To
Sure.
to really put that out there because what you bring to the table will help them, right? And it's
Absolutely.
important that people realize that they really do have the capability of adding to the organization and adding to their expertise.
100%. And one something that builds on that is the value of being a translator.
Yeah,
Specifically a translator between two groups of people that don't understand each other.
exactly.
And
That's the
so
connection, right?
that's exactly right. And so one thing that I just love about skateboarding, the tie it has to my career now
Mhm,
is, nowadays I consult brands, agencies, and cities on how to
mhm.
effectively engage the esports ecosystem,
Right.
right? Well, growing up, I didn't even have a TV. Go to my neighbor's house to play video games and such like anybody would, but I was never able to at home. I was
Right,
skateboarding, And so while I had a general understanding of an experience of gaming and esports, I was not by any definition a super hardcore gamer.
right.
I was a super hardcore skateboarder, right?
Yeah.
Well, as I got more into this industry and I started to learn about it, one of the biggest challenges for brands trying to engage this massive, valuable group of people is that gamers are far more skeptical of brands seeking to reach them than other industries and past generations,
Hmm,
right? And if there's one group, though, one group that is more skeptical by far than gamers, it's skateboarders.
really?
Yeah, and so once I got into this space, and I'll expand more on that in a second, but once I got into this space, I was like, "Oh, you're trying to reach a core group of people who want nothing to do with you?
Right,
I know all about this because I am this person."
right.
And so once I just applied my learning with gaming and esports and my marketing degree with my skateboarding, all of a sudden, I was not only able to greatly understand the needs and the desires and the perspectives of the gaming and esports communities,
Yeah.
I was able to translate that to the businesses and the production companies, the brands and the cities who are seeking to reach them,
Awesome.
right? Because there's a lot of people who can speak or understand the city and brand and agency side.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people who understand and can articulate or fail to but just the gaming and esports side.
Mhm.
But somebody that can hang with both groups
Right.
exclusively and then be that middleman has is extremely valuable. And so one thing
Absolutely.
I would encourage people, this is for both, I think, young and more seasoned people in their careers, is understanding number one, what do you know best?
Mhm.
Right? What are you experiencing? Then also understanding who is trying to engage with
Mhm.
this, right? And then developing an ability, and this is the writing and the reading from my youth come in, is it being able to, I can be, fortunately, and I feel very blessed to have this ability, but I can hang out at the esports tournament and hang with everybody, right?
Yeah.
And belong and feel included, and they feel like I belong, right? Which I do. But I can also be in the boardroom, and I can speak that language, and I can understand their perspectives, and I can, rather than using gaming terms to the board people, I can translate that over and then back. And so that has really been beneficial to my career. But I saw your facial expression with the skepticism in skateboarding. And so the funny thing, gamers and skateboarders, they're similar in their skepticism, but there's one major difference. And the major difference is the desire to be accepted by the mainstream. So the other major difference I would say that makes gaming a more compelling opportunity for brands is the size, the global size of the audience. In fact, I wish skateboarding was bigger because there would be more business opportunity around it, and I could work in it more.
Right.
I love when I get in skateboarding, which I do from time to time. But, the litmus test is really the topic of the Olympics. So it's ironic that skateboarding is now in the Olympics, and it has been for two Olympics now. But we don't want to be in the Olympics. We don't even really like the X Games. In fact, skateboarding is not even inherently competitive. It's more art than sport. We only participate in competitions because that's where the money is. And that's brands fund that to get skateboarders because it's hard to integrate into non-competitive skateboarding. Well, so if you bring up Olympics with any skateboarders, they'll say, that's lame, we're not jocks, and they'll make a joke about uniforms, right? If you bring up esports to any gamer, the response is, we should absolutely be in the Olympics, but the Olympics needs us more than we need them. There'll be some debate on which game should be in it. But there is a absolute desire to be accepted by the mainstream, where skateboarders like, leave us alone, we're in these streets, we don't want to be popular, we're over here, you're over there. We just want skater-owned and operated brands in our space. Now, the reason for, and I'll add this and then I'll open it up, but the reason that gamers feel this way. So gaming has now gone mainstream, number one. But historically, gamers have been undervalued, despised, made fun of, right? The stereotype of the kid in the basement with the Doritos and the
ostracized. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Furthermore, one thing that happens, my hot take on brands not being accepted and the skepticism is not so much that we are afraid of brands to come into our space. We're afraid for them to leave.
Yeah.
And the reason why is we've seen it time and time again. A big brand comes in, and all of a sudden there's money in our space. And the kid who's been connecting the PCs and consoles is getting paid to do production. And the kid who's been grinding for years, whose dad has said it's not worth your time, wins a tournament and makes money. And it's like, Dad, it is worth my time. I did do this. Look at me over here. I'm starting this production company business. And then the KPIs don't get reached, or the CEO leaves, and the brand, the business priorities get switched. The brand leaves, and everybody loses their job and opportunity. And then it happens again, and it happens again. And then all of a sudden, it's not, wait, I don't want you in this space. It's, let me see how long you're sticking around.
Yeah. It's been a spiral, right? It's just been one after another, after another, after another. And big companies too. Some of the biggest corporations in the world have gotten in and out of it, right? And so they show up and hey, we want to be your brand, right? We want to bring you your type of product. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we'll see how long you stay, right?
That's exactly right. And the tough thing about that whole thing, because I'm a big believer in seeing everyone's perspective.
Yeah.
And when you understand somebody else's goals, then you can help them achieve those goals through your product or service. And then you're getting paid to help them accomplish their goals, right? Well, so the esports community is saying, I need you to stick around, right? Well, the business is saying, I'm a public company and I have quarterly earning reports, right? I also have a boss.
I have a board. I have stockholders.
Who has a certain level of patience. And we're like, stick around. Let's see how dedicated you are. And it's like, I'd love to stick around, but you got to understand my reality.
Right.
Right. And so one thing that I would call out to the esports community to say, first of all, understand the reason for sponsorship. You don't get sponsorships because you're cool.
Right.
You get sponsorships because that brand has determined that they will make more money if they spend your money with you rather than somewhere else, or don't spend it at all.
Right.
And so I would say, guys, why don't we reward the companies who sponsor a space? Now, also, I get it. You want to say, well, you're in it just to make money. You're not in it for me. Guess what, fellas and ladies? If they make a bunch of money, they're going to be in it. And what you want is going to come through. Right. But if we could just, and one thing that is true, there are great case studies of brands who do dedicate themselves to esports, who do find the pain points, who add meaningful value.
Who hang around, right?
Who hang around,
and who care about the value they're bringing.
That's right. But for the brands, so I'm saying, okay, esports people, let's understand brands, right? But brands, you also got to understand the esports people, right?
Right.
The most crucial thing is you have to add meaningful value that enhances their experiences.
Yeah.
In fact, on the back of my business card, I have this slogan that I came up with: provide the community with what they desire, but cannot provide for themselves, and your brand will be embraced.
Yeah.
And so what you have to do in that process to break it down is you have to understand, what are the pain points of the community? What do we wish was better that we don't have, that we can't do for ourselves?
Yeah, 100%.
And then the cool thing that I enjoy developing with brands is identifying which pain point can your brand authentically provide for, based on your position and your brand story.
Right.
And it's different based, even same companies or different companies in the same category. Let's say two automobile brands, right? Like Tesla has a way different position than, let's say, Subaru.
Right.
Right. And so because of the position and the brand store and all these things, they may be able to provide for different pain points or be accepted in different ways. But if you just go in and you say, I'm a big brand, here's my logo, here's a tournament, eat my chips. Sorry, brother, that's not going to fly. You have to take time. And so what I provide to these brands really is the understanding, being a member of this community. I understand what's needed.
Yeah.
And when I don't understand, I have the relationships to go to my friends and ask and say, hey, man, it could be better. And then I go to these brands and I say, guys, this is your unique opportunity.
Yeah.
Find success together.
That's awesome, dude. That is so cool. So talk about the Davidson Learning Company for a second.
Yeah. So we're all proud of things we've developed, right? And so it was really, one thing is, I've never been entrepreneurial my whole life. I shared a couple stories about where I grew up and, that moment I didn't realize in Orlando with the t-shirts and stuff like that. But I've always been a great number two. Why? Because I've been a great number two as a younger brother to a great older brother.
Yeah.
Right? So I've been part of some companies where I was like the number two guy, and always been comfortable in that role. Like, you point me in the direction and I can lead, like first mate type of role, but it all falling on me or me being in charge solely, never would have dreamed it. Well, one of my roles, I'm the chairman of the eSports Trade Association,
right?
Which I'm very thrilled to be working with them almost 7 years now.
Wow.
Well, they hired an executive coach to invest in me, to make me a better leader so that we could be a better led association.
How cool.
I'm eternally grateful for.
I would be. That's awesome, man.
That's right. Yeah. And so I had my eyes open. So I'm working with this woman, Sharon, and I had so I had gotten laid off because of COVID, furloughed, I should say. COVID hit. I'm working for the biggest production company in the world. I lose my job, right?
Right.
Well, I applied to this company. I thought I was going to get it. I didn't get it. I had a meeting with Sharon later that day. I said, Sharon, I'm not sure if there's a job out there that includes what I am good at and enjoy, but does not include what I suck at and hate.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes a job's a job, right? It's, we're living in reality here. So she said, John, you're a brand. you should start your own personal brand. She said, you know how many people I work with who want to start their own personal brand but have nothing to build it on?
Yeah.
Like, John, you have the skateboarding career. You've done a TED Talk. You've got this unique expertise. You've worked for these global companies. Like, you've got like 5 things to build this brand on. And you could do this and just do what you've done for others for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I'm definitely not doing that. But I thought about it, and I met with a number of people, and I met with my pastor, is a great mentor to me. And he said one day, I met with him at his house out in the country, and he said, John, let me ask you this question. He said, ultimately, it's up to you. You got to do it if you're going to do it. But how much longer will it be until PRG brings you back full time? And I said, well, it's probably like 6 months, And he said, well, one of the hardest decisions in entrepreneurship is people who want to pursue their own company, they have to say no to the consistent, steady paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may not make any money either way,
Mm-hmm.
but this makes your decision much easier, and you might as well try. And at the end of 6 months, maybe you've got a company, or maybe PRG says, would you like to come back? And you say, yes, please.
Yeah.
But what an opportunity. And so I tried and I leaned into it. And the way I came up with the name, and I'll try to keep this short, but I talk a lot about value, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to teach these brands, agencies, and cities how to add value to the esports community, that they can get value back, right?
That's
so
so
like,
cool, man.
Thank you. So I said, what is a name that I can come up with that communicates value? And it's definitely not value consulting, because that sounds like a dollar store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
No
That
kidding,
sounds
right?
like cheap consulting, and I'm not trying to communicate that.
Yeah.
Well, as I was looking up all these, different iconic brands and the stories behind their names, and one of my favorite brands is Nike. I've been a Nike for a long time, and their story of Phil Knight growing this thing, all the things.
Shoe dog, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So the name Nike is the Greek goddess of victory.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, maybe another language. So I start looking up Greek, and I find that value in Greek is axia.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, axia sounds pretty cool. And then just from a visual perspective, like the A, the X, the I has a little accent on it. Like visually, I could do some really cool animation and illustration type things with this. Well, then I Google axia. And every consulting company in the world is called Axia. And I was like, I don't know that the search engine optimization is going to be great on this. Well,
Right.
I start thinking about, well, what industry I'm in. I'm in esports. I'm in gaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are some gaming terms that could make sense? And then I came across DLC.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hold on. My name's Davidson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting a company.
Mm-hmm.
I just need that L. What could that L stand for? Well, when I was at GameStop, our CMO would always talk about learnings.
Mm-hmm.
What are learnings? Learnings are insights based on experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have this weekly marketing meeting, and we talk about what we tried, what we learned, what the results were. And she'd say, learnings, all the learnings, let's apply these learnings. So Davidson Learning Company is I provide insights to brands, agencies, and cities on how to effectively engage the esports ecosystem in ways that are mutually beneficial. And so it's been a lot of fun to develop Davidson Learning Company, and also, take that word learning and, try to integrate it into other things. In fact, if you think about it, I've had a lot of ups and downs through my story. Like, it's easy to paint this as like, oh, a lot of success and unique, cool adventures, but there's been a lot of hardship as well.
Sure.
No experience is lost, whether it's successful or feels like a loss. No experience is truly lost if you learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'm also going to be doing some things more from a branding perspective, which I'm excited about this year, to lean into that learning aspect of it. But yeah, DLC is it's kind of fun. And what DLC means in gaming is downloadable content.
Right.
So DLC, a video game launches, and then later they release DLC, which is, a new map, new skins, whatever. And it's called the DLC drop. So another thing I started a couple of years ago was a podcast, and I was like, how do I link this to my marketing company, right? My consulting company. And I thought, oh, this could be this could be the content arm of my consulting, where I could build a network with industry leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I can share all these insights continually, and I'm top of mind for all of these people looking to understand what I've learned.
Right.
Well, there's a podcast out there that's called the DLC podcast. I don't know what it's about, but I just saw, can't call it DLC. Well, when these video games release DLC, it's called the DLC drop.
Mm-hmm.
There was no DLC drop podcast until I started it. So
there you go.
The DLC drop podcast was dropping, weekly, the insights from industry leaders and their career journeys and what they learned along the way. Not too dissimilar, a little more business focused, but not too dissimilar to what you do. But yeah, the cool thing about starting your own company, man, is you can do anything you want.
Yeah. That is the coolest thing.
Downside is you might do anything you want.
Right. Right.
But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Somebody told me the other day, they said, people think that when they start their own company, they're going to be able to work whenever they want to work. And that's absolutely not the case, right? You're working all the time when you own your own company. Can I ask you a question? Please. How brilliant is your pastor who knows you and knows that you're going anyway, right? It's kind of the running theme in your life. You're going anyway, right?
Yeah.
All your pastor had to do was sit down and ask you a couple of questions that turned you loose, right? How brilliant.
Very wise. A lot of wisdom and discernment coming from
What an amazing guy. What an amazing guy. That is so cool. Okay, so let's say somebody's listening to this and they want to talk to you about how to excel in eSports.
Mm-hmm.
How do they get a hold of you?
Great question. So I would say LinkedIn is probably the best way, or my email. So if you look up John Davidson eSports, you can type in Davidson Learning Company or DLC. I should pop up. I'm wearing a hat.
There you go.
Sure. Also, you can reach me at john@dlcyouth.com.
DLC Youth.
DLCYOUTH.com.
Okay.
The reason for that is, number one, to differentiate in the search engine optimization, but also, we're looking to impact youth. Every kid's a gamer nowadays. And so, how do we add value to the next generation is really by enhancing their experiences through gaming and esports.
Yeah, that's so cool. Hey, listen, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been an absolute blast.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, buddy. Great to meet you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.